Hello indie game fans, with the impending launch of Diablo 2 Resurrected and Diablo 4 around the corner, it's never been a better time to be a fan of the series, but if you're craving for more in the meantime, here are some of the best isometric action RPGs. Side note, while I do usually cover indies, these tend to be medium to large size studios, but it's a genre that I love, so that's the trade-off. Let's begin with a controversial pick, shall we? Wolcen, Lords of Mayhem was one of the most hyped action RPGs prior to launch, since it simply looked fantastic and modern, so much so that at launch, servers were severely hit and could not keep up with the load. Not a bad start, since that's reminiscent of Diablo 3, but further bugs did hamper the enjoyment of this title. Now, about 1.5 years after launch and multiple patches later, some of the issues unfortunately still appear to be there, but the developers have gone ahead with pumping out more post-launch content all for free, releasing the Bloodstorm update, and with the upcoming Arise update in the works. And while it still sits at mixed reviews, I do think that it's at least worth a look. As an ardent fan of indie games, I do have to slip in the occasional title that may be of interest, where the excellent The Slormancer is one for fans of Diablo. It's a pixel art action RPG that is so much more than meets the eye. While many studios have gone for the hyper-realistic look, the pixel art works here, and with an intentionally smaller scope, focusing on just 3 character classes, the classic warrior, rogue, and mage, this developer is able to craft an exquisite experience. You do see the hectic combat and variety here, where there's even a mini Path of Exile-like skill tree to mess with, and it's impressed so far in early access. Do note that it's a little light on content at the moment, so do temper your expectations, but at the very least, drop this game a wishlist to keep an eye on it.
I can see you. I can smell your dread and madness. You slash your way through my precious dungeons. You desolate my undead legions. You plunder my dear treasures. You steal the secrets that were not meant for mortal eyes. No matter.
I did smile to myself when I played Book of Demons during its early access launch, where this game is so Diablo to the extent that it's basically the same title, down to having a Tristram and Deckard Cain equivalent, and even a demon residing in the depths of a cathedral under the town. However, the papercraft look is neat, where deck building elements do factor in, and does also have an interesting customized level generation system that creates a dungeon based on whatever allotted duration you want to play. As such, this is an unabashed tribute that makes it a no-brainer pick.
The Lost Ark is now but a myth, a relic from the half-remembered Chain War. But now, our world has been torn once again. The demons have returned. With roaring destruction and waking nightmares.
What did I say? I told you that Lost Ark was coming to the West, and in one of the biggest announcements for Summer Games Fest, next to Elden Ring of course, the news was revealed that the Korean MMO action RPG is finally releasing in Europe and North America, looking to be the next big hit in the space. Although worryingly, it is being published by Amazon Games, who might not have the best track record. You choose one of 15 character classes, traveling the world in search of the Lost Ark in order to save the world from a demonic threat, where of course, there will be a ton of enemies thrown your way. It looks super sleek and polished, which makes it of interest, where the massive scale battles are one to watch as well. However, based on what I've gathered, there are some MMO trappings which may not be as palatable to some, where I don't know how bad the pay-to-win situation is, so cautiously placing it at a lower spot for now, and we'll see when it releases this fall. The character of Van Helsing has been one of the most influential and prolific in vampire fiction, where the arch-nemesis of Dracula has his share of books, movies, games and TV shows, and The Incredible Adventures of Van Helsing Final Cut is the game of interest. It's from prolific ARPG developer Clemmygames, who are based out of Hungary, where this package has a substantial amount of content. It was initially released as 3 separate games, but the final cut combines all of them together, where you play as the legendary vampire hunter, who, with the ghostly Lady Katerina by his side, battles through the land of Borgovia, helping the people and saving the world from monsters, magic and weird science. With 6 character classes and even multiplayer support, this is a great one with friends that I recommend. Since we last took a look, the intense indie action RPG Chronicon has launched out of early access after 5 years, marking a slow but fruitful development cycle, one that I hope the Slormancer covered earlier will follow, although hopefully it wouldn't take as long. Again, it's a pixel art title which is effective as compared to the hyper-realism for smaller developers, but this game has systems upon systems layered on top of each other. Plenty of endgame content and huge swarms of enemies, so if you want to feel like an almighty god destroying swaths of enemies at a go, this is the title to get. It's from a solo developer, which makes it even more impressive, who has been busy post-launch with new content, making it one of the best indies out there.
Borgovia, the fallen city. Whatever haunts this cursed city, I will face to find my friend.
Did you guys catch that familiar voice? If not, hit J on the keyboard to skip back 10 seconds and to take a listen once again. Yes, that is indeed the voice of one Geralt of Rivia, who is the voice of the demon hunter Victor Vran, landing in the city of Zargovia to help with a demonic infestation. Most interestingly, you can jump in this game, which is actually used in puzzles and to reach secret areas, so a little bit more traversal options as compared to other RPGs, given that this is built around a single character, although you can spec in different directions and is a must-play for fans of the genre. From the shambling corpse of THQ comes Titan Quest Anniversary Edition, the remastered classic from 2006 that was lost to time for a little bit due to IP rights and so on, now residing within the monolithic Embracer group. This was my jam back in the day, so I'm very happy to see it in some easily accessible form in the modern day. It's based on mythology, where satyrs and hydras are the enemies instead of demons, and does have one of the most interesting class systems, allowing you to choose 2 character skill trees to mix and match as you level up. The Mortal Throne DLC is packed into this, and most interestingly, the new owner did not sit idly on this, releasing the Ragnarok and Atlantis DLC packs, so I do wonder what's next for this and if there's a full-blown sequel in the works. Before I talk about one of my all-time favorites, if you made it to this point in the video, smack the like button and subscribe if you have not. Despite there being a sequel, I do still think that Torchlight 2 is the best entry in the franchise, combining a nice variety of non-conventional character classes, an extensive campaign, innovation in the form of pets that can sell stuff for you, and so much more. At the time, Runic Games did comprise of mostly ex-Blizzard North people, aka the Diablo 2 team, who presumably left since development on Diablo 3 was either too slow for their liking or not the vision that they had, striking it out to make a pretty darn good one of these. If you played through this game multiple times with multiple classes and on different difficulties and still want more, there are some excellent mods like Synergies out there, which adds new classes, towns, a new crafting system, legendary items, endgame dungeons and so much more, making it a must play if you have not. Of the early access titles on this list, the game which shows the most promise is Last Epoch, a title that has time travel as a central mechanic, which conveniently means plenty of varied biomes and areas to explore. It's quite a classic save the universe type of story, where your character jumps through time to find a way to save the world from an existential threat known as the Void. But as you know, story isn't usually the strong suit of games like this, and the action is where it's at. Since we last took a look, this game has moved from Phase 2 to Phase 3 out of 4 in early access, continuing to impress in the frequency of updates and how they communicate with the community, showing how to do early access right. I do think that it's worth picking up in its current state, although I do understand if you prefer to wait for the full release, but if Wolcen left a bad taste in your mouth, this may be the title to make things right again. After the closure of Iron Law Entertainment in 2008, developer of Titan Quest mentioned earlier, several of the employees there announced that they formed a new studio and were making, surprise surprise, another action RPG named Grim Dawn. While that released in 2016, this has been one of the most successful Diablo-like titles, being a massive source of revenue for the team, which naturally led to significant expansions such as Crucible, Ashes of Melmoth, and Forgotten Gods, where the development of this series seems to be complete for now. Similar to Titan Quest, this has a dual class system that allows you to mix and match, which is where most of the character builds and theory crafting fun comes in. And with 9 base classes and 36 possible combinations, there's plenty of possible variants that you can try. It's one of those feel-good moments in games where a group of friends struck out to make their own title, and most interestingly, they've announced their next project, which is not Grim Dawn 2, but rather a city builder named Father's Frontier, so colour me intrigued and I'm waiting to be impressed. If you remember developer Neocore Games from The Incredible Adventures of Van Helsing mentioned earlier, you will not be surprised to find out that they are the same company behind the excellent Warhammer 40,000 Inquisitor Martyr, and did also release the standalone expansion Warhammer 40,000 Inquisitor Prophecy in 2019. At the time, I was shocked to learn that there were no good 40k action RPGs, since this license and world built is just ripe for one of these, and being a modern entry in the space, has the requisite good looks, sleek action, a ton of enemies, as well as plenty of upgrades and progression systems. Playing as an Inquisitor, carry out the God Emperor's will by destroying the heretics and to purge the unclean. One thing to note is that last I checked, this does demand a constant internet connection even for the single player option, which is a big no-no, but given increasing broadband penetration, I would give this a pass based on the quality of the game alone.
You only live once, exile. Make your choice.
Once again, the elephant in the room or the no-brainer pick, Path of Exile looms large in the space, being hands down the best Diablo-like game that continues to put out free content 8 years after launch.
A simple ultimatum. Leave with your life and a meager reward, or risk it all for a chance at ungodly riches.
It is most well known for the insanely huge skill tree that does allow for so much character and build customization, as well as one of the most fun gem and skill socketing system. The developer has also been constantly adding new free content with new areas, enemies, endgame content and so much more, all for free, which is pretty insane. However, given the long history of this game, I do see it being difficult for new players to get into, especially since it's really a lot, but if you have never played this, I would ignore all the noise and just jump in to find the fun. I bet that the developers had no idea how large this would get when it launched in 2013, most cleverly being a free-to-play title that was not pay to win. Although people do complain about character and stash slots, but that's part of the free-to-play deal. There's a sequel in the works which is somehow still tied into the original, much like an Overwatch 2 situation, but I do think that that's a 2022 release at the earliest. Still, awesome game and all for free, so do give it a go, taking the number 1 spot. For a look at upcoming games like Diablo, watch this video and I will see you after the jump.
Face the ultimatum.